Welcome to the second episode of Season 1 of the TURD Podcast, also known as the Trail Ultrarunning Race Directors Podcast. I'm your host, Shalini Bhajan, and I'm excited to introduce today's guest. So let's get rolling. I'd like to welcome Jess Mullen, the race director for Cascade Crest 100. Cascade Crest was recently listed in Ultrarunning Magazine's 2025 list of old school ultras. Welcome to the podcast, Jess.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So I'm going to start with, who is Jess Mullen?
Let's see. I'm a 50-year-old, just turned 50.
Welcome.
New age bracket for racing, and life just feels a little different. But I live in Seattle, Washington, so in the Pacific Northwest, but I grew up in San Francisco, California, and spent kind of half my life there, half my life here. I am married, have been married. We'll be celebrating 20 years this year, which
Very
is pretty
nice.
cool. Yeah. No kids, but we have dogs. We've always had dogs. I love dogs a lot, more than people. And I currently work in race directing, hence why I'm here probably on the podcast.
So is that your full-time job, race directing?
I would say it's 80 to 90%. I still do some run coaching for some ladies and a couple guys that I've worked with for years, but that's much less than it used to be. And I used to be a registered dietitian.
Okay.
So I did nutrition counseling for years.
So was that
Go ahead, sorry.
No, was that your real life profession then?
It was my second real life profession. My first real life profession was I was an accountant.
Okay.
I was an auditor for one of the big firms for Deloitte, which was Deloitte and Touche back then. Did all the stuff, all the hours, took my CPA exam, passed, and hated it. And so right when I was like due to turn in my paperwork to actually get the credential, I left the field. And
how old were you at the time?
I was 20 or 29. Maybe
and
somewhere around
how long did that accounting career last?
Like 2 years.
2 years. Damn, that's short-lived.
Yeah. It just, I thought I wanted to be this big, powerful woman growing up. I was clueless. And to me, that meant making a decent amount of money and like wearing a suit.
Sure.
And I had no idea that what really mattered to me was like fulfillment. And I didn't get that from auditing financial statements. It's just, and the whole corporate lifestyle of like, whatever, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and did not suit me well. And I saw the people that were higher up, like further along, worked more hours than I did. And I was like,
Sure.
That is not the life for me. And it's funny because around that time was when I really started running because I played sports in high school. I was not very good. So like I didn't play in college. And I started jogging in college to like stay in shape and talk to friends. But, like a couple miles here and there. And then when I was an auditor, my boss was doing team and training, I think it was, for a marathon and raising money.
Okay.
And I think I'd heard of a marathon before, but maybe not. And I was just like, what is this craziness? And so I trained and ran, and so I did the same thing. I trained and ran my first marathon in 2000.
Okay.
And
I'm assuming what age
so I was
group
so I was 25. I was born
25.
in 1975.
Okay.
And coinciding that year, I got sober. So I've been sober for almost 25 years.
Okay.
Because it just didn't work well for me.
Sure.
And so I was kind of trying to figure my life out, wasn't super disciplined or anything. So I didn't train very well. I didn't follow through. And also, of course, I had these huge notions that I was going to be this amazing runner in Honolulu doing the marathon, where I didn't heat train or anything, coming from San Francisco. And so it was a mess and I fell apart and I walked like the last 8 miles. I finished it,
Sure.
But I was like so ashamed of myself, which, youth. So I've come a long way.
Haven't we all? So how many years, I guess, would you say you've been running then?
So I've been running for the most part since really dedicated since I'd say 2005. So I
Okay.
stopped running for a while after that marathon because I thought running wasn't for me. And then I got back into it and got more, I just grew as a human being, and
Yeah.
ran a bunch of half marathons and really enjoyed that and thought, well, maybe I'll try a marathon again. And so
And was that all road
it
marathons
was
or
all road
half?
back then.
Sure.
Yeah, I went hiking, but I never thought like of trail running. It was like
Okay.
I either hiked or I ran on the road. And so I ran marathons for a few years. And then my friend started dating a guy who ran ultras. So
Okay.
I first heard about ultras in 2006. And I was like, what is this? And her and I started trail running a little bit then. And I was like, this is kind of fun. You move faster on the trails. Like I always liked hiking. And
Sure.
so, but I thought, like, why would you ever want to run longer than a marathon? Like, that just seems dumb. And then I did enough marathons where I was curious.
Okay.
And so it seemed tangible. And so I did my first 50K in January of 2007.
What race
Um,
was that?
it was the Tiger Mountain Fat Ass. So Tiger Mountain is a local mountain. And always the first Saturday in January, they have a fat ass, which is free, and it's to work off your fat ass from the holidays,
Yeah.
is where it comes from.
Sure.
There's no aid stations or anything. You carry your own stuff. It's lightly marked with Christmas tree decorations, whatever they're called,
Okay.
ornaments, and it was great. I talked to people. It was so different than road running. Like we chatted, we hung out, like I ate food. I wasn't that beat up afterwards. And I was like, I kind of like this. And back then, there's a group called the Marathon Maniacs,
Yeah.
which
Actually, they're still
is,
around, I think.
yes, and
Yeah.
it's different now than it was back then. Back then, it was mainly a lot of people in the Pacific Northwest,
Okay.
and it was kind of just getting started. I mean, I came late to the party a few years in, but still, it was nothing like it is now. And so it was very much our community, and they were nutty, and they did races all the time. And I was like, okay, I kind of like that. So I did like my next 50K like 2 weeks later or something like that, and just kind of got into this habit of running races almost every weekend. And I had a good friend, her name was Vaughn, and she's actually in the 100 Club, um, who's a maniac, who's done a million races. And her
Sure.
and I started hanging out. So that was kind of the beginning of my running career into ultras.
Okay. Um, I want to go back a little bit to
Sure.
how you got into being a dietitian and what that transition was like from accounting. And how long did
Yeah.
you do that?
So I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I didn't want to be in the corporate world. And I mean, every good thing that's happened to me is usually somebody else's idea. And so I was always obsessed with healthy eating and food and was interested in learning about it. And I kept talking about it. It's like, I don't know what I want to do. I know I don't want to do this, but I don't know. And one of my friends was like, you should go into nutrition. Like, and I was like, that's a brilliant idea. So that's how it happened. So I had to go back to school to take prerequisites. So I left my job, started waiting tables again, because that's what I always did in college, took prerequisites to get into a graduate program for nutrition. So I needed to take a lot of science classes,
Sure.
and which was really fun. And then got my master's degree at Bastyr University up
Okay.
here in the Pacific Northwest. It's a kind of a naturopath type school. Loved it. Did an internship, took the exam, became a registered dietitian, and I started out working in a hospital because I actually found that really interesting because I didn't know much about disease and all the different things that can kind of be a problem in people's lives, like health
Sure.
wise, because I always grew up healthy and just wasn't exposed to it. And so I wanted to start there because it helped me understand nutrition, especially in regards to different conditions.
Okay.
And it was fun. It was really fun working in a hospital. So much energy, different people. It was great. And then it got a little old because all you mainly do as a dietitian in a hospital is write formulas for TPN, which is IV feedings, and tube feedings,
Okay.
which is not super exciting after a while.
Sure.
And whenever I got like a doctor's order to go counsel somebody on nutrition, they're in the hospital. Like they don't care, that it's not the place to really help somebody make change. But I realized I wanted to go into private practice
Okay.
and try to help people with their relationship with food. So I did that. I opened my own practice at the end of 2009 for nutrition and did that until about 2 years ago is when I really kind of cut it off completely, maybe 3 years ago now. And so for years, I worked with people somewhat on weight loss, but for me, it was more about because nutrition's kind of basic. Like it's very political. Like people have their
Sure.
opinions. There's a lot. That's the whole thing. I don't even want to get into. That's the exhausting part of it. But from like proteins, fats, carbohydrates, real food, plants, artificial foods, like it's decently simple. And the issue with most people and their relationship with food is not about the food itself. It's about everything else. And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of judgment, there's a lot of frustration, there's a lot of deeper issues. Like food is used as coping, as comfort, all of that kind of stuff. And so for years, I really enjoyed trying to help people have a healthier relationship with food. So not so much about giving exact amounts you should have. I mean, that was part of
Right.
it, but kind of discussing what happened. Why
Okay.
did, that kind of stuff. And then I got really burnt out on it because people have really strong emotions around food in their body,
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely. Yeah.
So
Would you say that your background as a dietitian has then influenced or helped your racing, especially when you go into 100 miles and up? Um, and does that give you a bit of an upper edge or a better understanding of how your body is and how it's reacting?
I think so. I
Okay.
think so. And with recovery, because like I know food so well, it's like automatic. I mean, even just doing the math on, say, if I am trying to follow, making sure I hit a certain amount of calories an hour, if I'm thinking about how much electrolytes I've had, how much fluid I've had, like it just comes very quickly and naturally to me because I've thought about it and calculated it for so many people for so many years.
Yeah.
Um, and thinking of like alternatives if something doesn't taste good anymore, because what you can enjoy in a race can change over time and you can get sick of things and have aversions and just getting creative. So yeah, I definitely think it's helped a lot.
Gotcha. We'll jump back to ultra running and let's go back to 50K. What would you say your natural transition was? Did you go through the distances, 50 mile, 100K,
I
and then
did.
100 mile?
I did, which some people don't, and I'm glad I did because I think it's fun to do that because then they each get to be something special the first time you do them. Yeah, so I did my first 50 miler in 2007, the same year as my first 50K. And I think my first 100K was that same year too. Um, and then the next year was when I tried my first 100 miler, which I DNF'd my first 100 miler.
Which race was that?
It was McNaughton
Oh
in
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Pekin, Illinois.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, I went with my husband, but he was in the hotel room. So I was kind of, out there by myself, didn't know anything. And there wasn't information online. It was a different time.
sure.
And the amount of people that ran 100 milers was much less. And so around like, I think it was between mile 70 and 75, I stopped at an aid station. It was like 2 in the morning and I got cold. And I sat by the fire and I thought, I'm going to be too cold out there. And so I quit.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, I didn't have the mindset. I didn't understand getting out of the moment. I just got scared and just went with it. Like didn't even think twice about it and just quit. And then within like 3 hours, hated myself for
Yeah.
quitting, and that can be such a tough mental spiral,
Yeah.
DNFs.
It's a
Like
bad rabbit hole
sometimes
to
they can
go
be
down.
fine, but yeah. And so I came home and I was so embarrassed because I had like two friends, especially that ran hundreds, and they were always the ones because they always told me, you're not a real ultra runner until you do a 100 mile. That was always the attitude when I entered ultras back then.
Yeah.
And I was like, whatever. But so I came home and they're like, what happened? And I'm like, I got cold. And they were like, are you kidding me? But anyways, the advice I was given was get back on the horse as fast as you can. Pick out
Yeah.
another 100 mile or go do it and finish it because I emotionally it was really hard. I was so ashamed, and that was something I dealt with a lot when I was younger in all areas of my life was just, I really struggled with being embarrassed or ashamed, like having this bar that I created for myself, what I looked like, how much money I made, how fast I was running, like any area of life, I created a bar like out of nowhere that I felt I should achieve. And if I didn't, I just really struggled with that,
Yeah.
you know?
Would you say that, with your racing career and you're still actively racing, I'm assuming that wasn't your first and last DNF.
Yeah.
How
Yes.
would you say that transition from your first DNF and where your mind and, emotions are to where you are now? Has that journey changed, or how do you feel about another DNF?
Yes, it's evolved and it's grown and it's changed absolutely. And that's the great thing. And that's part of why I really like doing ultras because I feel like it has helped me grow as a human being, as I've matured as a woman. I feel like I entered it at a great time in my life where there's been a lot of growth overall in the past 15 years. But I've never liked DNFs in the moment. Like the times that, I mean, there's been times where it's been appropriate and that was fine. But the other times it was I didn't get out of the moment. And the thing about DNFs too that I just have to say is they're so personal
Yeah,
because what I'm going to quit over versus what somebody else is going to quit over are totally different and personal and okay. But for me, if something ain't broken, like if I'm just cold, tired, this feels hard, it feels too long, whatever, if I'm just in the minute and I quit, it really beats me up. But I have become, I think, such a stronger runner from those DNFs. I would not be the runner I am today if I hadn't gone through those and learned from them.
sure.
So they needed to happen. I don't regret them. And that's the thing too. And to just jump forward from the beginning, I don't really struggle with shame anymore. I mean, I'm human, of course I do, but especially in running because it's grown so much into it's not about the time. I mean, yes, I set goals and all that kind of stuff, and I try to do the best I can, but it's about doing the best I can.
Yeah,
And if I want to do a race and I want to try hard, it's like try hard no matter what's thrown at you. You might have the slowest time you've ever had, but it's because it was 100 degrees. You threw it 5 times, but did you try and deal with it as best you could? Because then I walk away proud
yeah,
versus or I want to try and I decide, well, it's just not my day, or I come up with some excuse, then I don't feel good because I know that's not what I wanted to do. There are definitely races that I go into where I'm like, I just want to have fun, or it's an adventure.
yeah.
And so it's really about what my purpose is and am I following through with that? Because that's to me, that's what matters is one, the relationship with myself, and two, the effort involved, not the outcome,
Okay.
which to me is like heart and soul versus ego,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
Yeah.
With that, I guess I would like to ask, how many 100-mile races have you run till date?
So I think I've probably DNF'd, I would say 1500s. I'm gonna ballpark it because I actually haven't tracked how many DNFs, but I have finished 101 100 mile or longer races.
Very
So I probably
nice.
started about 115 or 16.
Okay. And what's the farthest
Yeah.
distance you've run?
The farthest I've done is 623 miles,
Damn.
and that was in a 10-day race.
So
Yeah.
talk to me a little bit about sounds about right.
On a 1 mile loop.
Oh shoot. What was that like? We had, I know, briefly chatted on that when
Yeah,
I saw
it
you in
felt like
Seattle,
being in
but
prison.
so talk to me a little bit about that.
It was the thing that I love about the long multi-days is it is a spiritual experience. It is um, something that a state of being that you cannot get to in normal life. And I had no idea that that would happen. So that was really incredible. And the best way I can describe that is like it strips for me life down to its most simple forms. And I see the beauty in everything for the most part. Like it's really a cool place to be, which is partly driven from extreme fatigue and lack of sleep. But um, it's such a different mental game because no matter how fast or how slow you go, time moves the same. And
Yeah.
so it's a real good teacher of patience, which I really appreciate because that's something I can struggle with in races. And it forces you to deal with that and to just deal with not needing scenery to make your run enjoyable.
Was that
Because
mind-numbing?
yeah, because most, I mean, all the timed events that I know of are short loop courses of
Yeah.
some sort. And so they're very different and they're very much about strategy because the course is so set and so simple and logistics are so simple. There's so much more strategy involved of like how often are you going to walk or when are you going to take breaks or how are you going to sleep, like all of that kind of stuff. um,
How many miles did you average a day for that? You said it was 7 days, correct?
so it was 10 days,
10 days.
so 100
Okay.
100K a day was the
Okay.
average. Yeah.
Any advice for people wanting to get into multi-day events as far as, I guess, nutrition, foot care, because there's just so many components with,
Yeah, it's super fun. Start with something short, whatever's appropriate for you, whether it's 6 hours, 12 hours. If you've done hundreds, maybe 24 hours. But start with something, they're really social. They're so, I mean, that's the fun part of them because everybody's on that same 1 mile loop. Normally, say, especially a point to point course, the people that are faster, you never see them again. I mean, most of the field you never see again.
yeah,
But on a 1 mile loop, you see everybody and you see what everybody's going through. You see people go through tough times and you see them pick it up again. So there's much more community and feels like we're in it together. And everything I've ever learned, most everything I've ever learned about foot care, about problem solving, so much of it has been at multi-days from other people. And that's the great thing too, is like, yeah, you can plan, but it's the place to like try because people will tell you like, oh, well, when I had this, I did this, or, try this. I have this, go ahead and try it. Cut out the side of your shoe so
sure.
your toe can like not rub against it, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like my foot was hurting really bad in a multi-day. And this guy was just like, you really need to loosen your shoes a lot more. And it was like night and day difference. Simple things, but things that you just maybe haven't tried yet. And food's a hard thing because everybody's different.
Yeah.
Everybody's different on how but it's a great place to try different strategies. Because like
Sure.
say a 50K that's a loop or point to point, you got to have drop bags or a 50 mile or any distance. You got to try and time out when you think you're going to need things. Whereas on a short loop course, you can have everything there at all times.
Yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
going to ask you about your last race because wasn't that your 100 you were trying
It
to
was
shoot for?
no, I just did one last weekend. So it was
Okay.
my 101st. And then, yeah.
Hey, so any races that are still on your to-do list, or is there a benchmark where you would like to run them within a 5 year,
Yeah.
10 year span?
Yeah.
Top three
Top three races overall,
that you would
or
still like to run.
still like to do. Oh, that's a good question. I'm really excited. In like a week and a half, I'm going to do C&O Canal 100 in Virginia. And I've always wanted to do that. At least I think it's in Virginia. It's on the East Coast.
Okay.
And so I'm excited about that. I would like to get 10 years at Badger Mountain Challenge, which is in Eastern Washington. I've done it 8 times. I've never gotten 10 years at a race before. At Cascade Crest, I was on track, which I'm now the race director for, which we can get into. I have finished that 7 times.
Okay.
Twice. And I wanted to get 10 finishes there, but I don't anymore. It's too much fun being the race director to go back out there and run it again.
So let's talk about Cascade Crest just briefly before
Sure.
we move into how you got into race directing. With that being your 7th, what year did you start race directing Cascade?
I started being the race director in 2022. Yeah, 2022. So I've done 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna roll back to how you got into race directing, what that was like, and
Yeah.
just how you got your start.
Right. So Cascade has always been near and dear to my heart. One of my favorite races. I ran it every year for many years. It was my marker race where I would train and I would work to PR at it every year, and I did for many years, and it was amazing. And I wanted to start giving back to the race because I love the race. And so I started asking the race director, how can I help out? Could I eventually be a part of the board? Like, is that even an option? Da, da, da. And so in 2019, I came up and helped out race week because they, do the whole week, like getting everything ready for the race. And so I did that, which was really fun and learned a lot. I had no idea how much goes into putting on a race, especially a 100-mile mountain race. That's a big loop with
Right.
17 aid stations. And that was just race week. I had no idea, but even that was mind blowing. And it was so fun. It was so fun. And so then 2020 happened and the race didn't happen. 2021 came about and I was going to do the same thing where I was going to run the race, help out race week. And the guy who ran the fire station, which is the start finish,
Sure.
and does all the logistics of the aid stations, is from Canada. And they were not allowing people to come down from Canada in 2021 to the United States. And so he asked me if I would do his position and not run the race that year. And without even like a second thought, I said yes, because of course, like this race has given me so much. Like it'd be so selfish. It'd be my 10th time or whatever starting the race. Like, forget it. And so I ran the fire station that year, which was a huge learning curve. Because I'd never seen behind the scenes during the race before.
Yeah.
And I'd never been involved in a race before. I mean, I put on a fun run, but it was nothing. So it was a big learning curve and it was so much fun. And so then I got injured later that year in 2021. I got a stress fracture in my femur, which was life-changing, I'll tell you. Learned a lot of good stuff. And it was when I was getting really burnt out on doing nutrition. And I didn't know, again, what do I want to do? Because I can't not work. I'll be bored out of my mind. And Rich, the race director, the previous race director of Cascade, asked me if I'd consider being the race director. So again, he asked, I didn't think of it. And I was like, yeah, like I want to try and do that, because part of my recovery from my stress fracture for me was running had become too big of the piece of the pie of my life. It was too great of a percentage of what I spent my time doing, what I spent my time thinking about. And I needed to fill more time. I needed a big commitment. And I knew Cascade would be a big commitment, and it would be also a way to give back. When I was younger, I don't know if I would have enjoyed being involved with races as much, because running, it was so important, like me becoming a runner or whatever. And now as I've gotten older, what's so important to me is more of like giving back and trying to be helpful. And so being on the other side of races that have meant so much to me is very appealing. And especially Cascade is a nonprofit. So we're
Yeah.
all volunteers. So it's also a volunteer position. So
I guess Cascade then was your very first um, debut or race that
yeah,
got you into
yeah,
race directing.
which was scary. Scary and overwhelming because, just even, there's no cell service on most of the course. So it's all radio. Um, and it's a huge production. It's a wonderful thing. I'm very comfortable with it now, but all of it just was a lot. And Rich is wonderful. And Rich is a very relaxed, laid back guy. And he's a firefighter and he is dialed in and he knows what he's doing. So he just had everything in his brain. So also it was like he kind of explained things to me, and it would be like as we went along, he'd be like, "Oh yeah, and you want to do this." And so it wasn't like there was a Cascade Crest RD instruction book or anything. So
Right. Um, with Cascade, I guess I'm assuming you've run the loop and you've done the out and back as well
yes,
when
I've
you've
done both.
personally raced it.
Yes,
So,
yes,
speak to me a little bit about why I know, I mean, just so a lot of people that are not familiar with the race, why those decisions, because the classic course is the looped, 100-mile
yes.
loop course. What years and why did you guys have to do an out and back on that?
Yeah, the race used to be in August, which is now a greater fire season, which is why we've moved it to July, because
July.
in 2017, there was an active fire on the backside of the course that
Okay.
we had to not be able to use the backside of the course. So that's why we did the initial out and back that year. I believe that was the first year the race was really modified in a major way. Um, and it's a lot harder doing the out and back because the first half is a bit more downhill than uphill. And so when you turn around and go back, it's like, whoa, this is a lot of
Yeah.
uphill. And I got, it was tough on Rich because this was, before I was involved. I ran the race that year, but the decision was made on Tuesday and the race was on Saturday. So between Wednesday and Friday, they had to, figure everything out, which just changing cutoff times, like figuring out what time aid stations needed to be there because the mileage was different. The course was
Right.
slightly longer. The climbing was different. And so people don't realize how much you have to try and calculate when runners are going to be coming in, when they're going to be leaving. Volunteers are volunteers. They don't want to be there excessively extra amounts of time,
Right.
and most of our aid stations most of them are at least an hour drive, to get out there and just all that kind of stuff. And then we were good for a couple years. And then one year, I think it was before the out and back year, before we moved it to July, where the first part of the course was, who owns it, which the Nature Conservancy, they were worried about fires. And so they closed the trails to the public. There were no fires, but they decided to just close the trails right before the race. So we lost the first 10 miles of the course. And our course is very remote. It's a beautiful course. It's an amazing loop. You've done it.
Yeah.
But there are no other trails out there. So when we lost that first 10 miles, it was like there's no other way through there. And so that year we started from the halfway point, went back 25 miles, turned around, did the second 25 miles, and then did the second half of the
Oh,
loop.
wow. Yeah.
So that was an awkward
That
year
was a
too.
logistic nightmare, I bet.
Yeah, same thing. Like you're just trying to scramble and figure things out last minute. And then the year after that was the year, or no, it was a couple of years later, or no, it was the year after that, whatever, it was recently. We did an out and back, and that time it was because an aid station, which was a parking lot, they were doing a fisheries, Fish and Wildlife was doing a restoration project, and they were using that parking lot for all the equipment, so it
Right.
was closed. And again, on the backside, there is no other trail other than the Pacific Crest Trail, which is Alpine Lakes Wilderness, which does not permit events. So there's nothing else out there. So we lost the whole second half of the
Wow.
course. just because of that. And it was really challenging because we didn't find out till spring. And we only find, and I have no control over this. And I have runners emailing me, kind of, sometimes runners don't think, I think, saying, well, you changed the course. And I wanted to say, excuse me, I did not change the course.
Right. We don't
This was
control
out
it.
of my control,
Sure.
And so we did the out and back again that year, which
Okay.
at least now we have the out and back course dialed in.
Right, right. In the off year.
Mhm.
Um, with with that, I guess I would like to dive into a little bit with the trail systems that you guys are using, and whether that's Forest Service or National Forest, and that permitting process, especially in the current political environment. How do you feel that's become more challenging, or how has that process? I mean, your permits are 1 year or 5 years, or how? Tell me a little bit about that, just so people have an
Right.
idea.
So yeah, so Cascade Crest, I'd say about 85 to 90% of the course is US Forest Service,
Okay,
which I've recently talked to I've emailed our Forest Service permitter for one to say, hi, are you still there? Um, and are we still good? And with the
right.
Forest Service, and she said yes, at least as far as we know. With the Forest Service, because we've been around for a while, the race has been around for 25 years, we do a 5-year permit.
Okay,
And just we do an annual like operating plan or something like that. And then, so that's nice. We also work with Washington State Parks, which is where the race starts and finishes, because that's on the Palouse to Cascades Trail. And same thing where a halfway point, Hyack, is also Washington State Parks. So there's
okay,
only two small sections. That's Washington State Parks. We do that permit every year. Same thing. We've been around long enough. We have a good relationship with them. I mean, and that's my biggest thing with permitters is like, hey, whatever you want for the
sure.
most part, because they have the power, not me.
Yeah.
And I'm just a race trying to happen, oh my God. Anyways, runners
So
don't
that's two
understand that.
permits then for the race?
And so and then we get permission because there's an area called the checkerboard where
Okay,
there's a bunch of different owners. It looks like a checkerboard if you were to look at like a map that shows the parcel's ownership. And uh, and so for those private ones, which is a very small section of the course, we just get permission and get them covered on our insurance.
okay,
So it's actually not too hard compared to like, I also work for a race company and we have a variety of events a year. And there's one that I just help out on a bit, and it's a 50-mile relay, and the
okay.
amount of permits, because it goes through towns. So you have the towns, you have the parks, you have the county, like and every town and every county, every city and every county is different
Yeah,
in
yeah,
how
yeah.
they do their permits, what they require, when you're allowed to turn in your permit. Um, yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
A little history on Cascades. Currently, it's a lottery. Do
Yes.
you remember when it went to lottery and why, primarily?
I feel like it went to lottery around probably about 10 or 11 years ago, around 2014. Rich would know the answer to that, but kind of somewhere around there. And it was because it would, when we would open registration, it would sell out within like 10 minutes.
Okay,
Yeah, it
that's a
got
good
to where it
problem to
was
have.
just, yeah, it got out of control. And so they switched over to a lottery, which I think is a good thing.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it has its pluses and minuses, of course. Yeah, and we
And the
stopped. Yeah,
race is capped at what? 300, 350,
no, 180.
180? That's a
Yeah,
small race cap.
yeah, which I love.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A little bit more manageable.
it's what fits the course, the fire station, all of it. It's
Okay.
just the appropriate size. And we used to clear the wait list every year. I mean, people would, pull themselves off the wait list, but it's been, I think, 3 years now where we have not cleared the wait list. And especially the past 2 years, we have not gotten anywhere close to clearing the wait list. So it's funny, people, influencers will contact me and want to get an entry and talk about how they can increase the exposure to the race and
All right.
add traffic. And I'm like, I don't want any more traffic for this race. Like, we're good. We're good.
Yeah, that's funny. Um, with Cascade, when I ran it last year, there's a definite culture. And when I say culture, you know, the whole old school vibe to the race is so there. The community is just incredible. And that support system. Have you, like, since you took on race directing, would you say that has grown, that has expanded? Steps you've possibly taken to get more people involved? Because I think the volunteer fleet just, it's such an important component in being able to host a race.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what I saw at Cascade was incredible. It was just an
Yeah.
amazing turnout of people and just, it was beautiful.
Yeah. It's so great. And so I would say I feel like the biggest impact I've had so far in a specific area of the race is the finish line. Like
Okay.
people used to hang out, but it has definitely grown and I love it.
Yeah.
And I like having a lot of people there. So I've really fostered, we're here to have fun. Like we kind of work, but we're not working too hard because I want people to want to be there, and we get a lot of volunteers. I'm so grateful we are, knock on wood, not a race that struggles to get volunteers. Part of that is because people want to run the race. And
Right.
if you volunteer, you get extra tickets into the lottery. So that's part of it. But it's creating an environment of like, we're kind of hanging out and we're supporting runners and people really, and one of my main ladies at the finish line is Jill, and she used to be a principal, and she's an incredible human being, and she is so good at getting volunteers to like want to take ownership of their position. Like she just knows how to, like, from working, I think, with kids to get them engaged, excited about what they're doing. And so we have a thing where, we have a team where you own a runner. When a runner comes in, you'll be assigned, like, that's your runner, especially if they don't have any crew there. And it's like, you're just checking in, like, do you want the bucket for your feet? What
Right.
food do you want? What else can I get you? I'll leave you alone if you want me to, but like that everybody is taken care of at the finish line. And I always, and we've talked about this, like I've gotten so many emails of like, I can't believe you talked to me at the finish line. Race
Yeah.
directors don't normally talk to me at the finish line. And I love it. And I think, like both of us probably experience, I'm a runner. I know what it's like to be the runner
Sure.
and what a difference it makes to have people like that. You're not just some random, like, hey, but like, hey, how was it?
Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
hard? I hope so.
Yeah.
Um, and then I've tried to really, because people have definitely, like, everybody wants Cascade to stay pretty much as it is. And I really try to pay attention to that. So I've really tried not to increase our social media presence at all, even though it's a time where like a lot of that is a bigger thing. And,
Oh,
and
yeah.
when people want to sponsor us, like Gnarly is a lovely sponsor that we have for drinks. And I discussed with them what we're willing to do on our end. Because a lot of times people want you to do a lot of promotion. And I'm
Right.
always like, I'm not going to do it because I only email my runners with race information. Like,
Sure.
and I don't think there's any, like, in the race company I work for, we're totally different, but Cascade is its own little entity. And so it stays very low key. We don't have vendors at the finish line, like it's just hanging out.
How is the board? Talk to me about that setup a little and what that structure looks like. I'm assuming, everybody has a role they're playing and decision making.
Yeah, and so the board, everybody currently on the board, except for one, is actively engaged with the race.
Okay.
For our board, you don't have to be. It's not a working board. Like, we have like a race committee, which is separate. Um, the board is strictly involved with the nonprofit, the financial decisions, the major decisions about the race. And that's really it. And so we like having people on the board that are close to the race because they understand the race better and understand why we would want to make financial decisions. The only person who's not local and affiliated with the race anymore is Kevin, who is in Japan,
Okay.
who is our treasurer, and he is like our accountant who does our taxes. So he's extremely helpful because none of us are CPAs and are licensed to file taxes. And then we try to keep in mind having people on the board that have different skills, if possible. You know, somebody that has a background in nonprofits, because say like, I don't know much about nonprofits.
Yeah.
We have somebody who's good with web design and technology type stuff. You know, our volunteer coordinator is usually a member of the board because they're so involved with the coordination of the race and the people needed and stuff like that. I think, technically a director, but I don't know what it is. Like
Okay.
we're not super fancy pants. We're
Yeah.
pretty laid back forward. But because
Uh,
I'm the race director, I'm like separate but
yeah.
involved. I don't know.
So you
Yeah.
mentioned Cascade is a nonprofit event. Do you guys have certain initiatives or profit programs, I should say, in place where, X amount of money or donations are funding, like, for example, Hard Rock, sending kids to school, or there are other races, nonprofits that have other associations. Do you guys have some programs in the community that Cascade sort of flows into? And
Yeah. So at this point, our main objective is to put on a safe and fun race and support local trail organizations and the surrounding community, so Easton.
okay,
So we donate money to like the Washington Trails Association, which is our local large association, the Pacific Crest Trail Association, which is on the West Coast, and specifically a chapter of the Pacific Crest Trail Association because they maintain the trails that the race is on, and they're just amazing human beings. And so we donate to those organizations. And then within Easton, we donate to the fire station. We donate to the cadet program, which is also a nonprofit program, which is such a great program for kids out there, especially in a smaller community,
yeah,
rural community, and to the Easton High School.
okay. With just going back to these different, like the PCT Association, what does the trail maintenance for a 100-mile loop looks like? I have an event on a 26-mile loop, and that's overwhelming. I can't even
Yeah,
imagine.
yeah. We have a whole team. Yeah, yeah. So, and the hard part is too, is we're not out of snow till usually about at best a month before the race. So it's a small window. So thank goodness the PCT crew, which is the majority of the first half of the course, which is 30 miles of the course,
Yeah,
they know, and they know our race is the third weekend in July, and they are out there. And I only want them to make it safe. I don't want them to make it too pretty. Like this is a trail run.
oh yeah,
You know, like sometimes I'm like, don't worry about it. Don't make it too nice. Like, come on. This is a trail run. Like people need to like deal with it. And then there's other guys that are major volunteers for the event that, especially one person, Trevor, who is not associated with the race. He does this on his own, but we support him and he has a team of people and they do the rest of the course. And a lot of how we find out is people will go out and scout like local runners, people that are not even running the race, but just know the course
sure.
will go out and they'll send either me or post on the Facebook page a picture, an estimate of where it is on the course. Like say if there's a big tree down to let Trevor know, who can then let Jeff know, and somebody will get out there and
Take
with
care
a
of the trail.
chainsaw and take care of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
So
I know you had briefly mentioned volunteering and at Cascade Crest. What's that program like? If I were to volunteer 5 years, do I get an extra point? How does that, like, how's that sort of networked or built in?
yeah, so for running the race, volunteer hours only count race weekend. And if
Okay.
you volunteer at least 6 hours, you get one extra ticket.
Okay.
You volunteer at least 12 hours, you get two extra tickets and onward up into the next year's lottery only.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's just for the love of being a volunteer. And
Yeah.
so our aid captains, often when we do have sponsors, or if we don't, we might, as a board, get them a gift, something, because most of our aid captains have been around for many years, and they do their aid station every year.
Yeah.
And then, so just to give the scope, because everybody at Cascade's a volunteer, none of us get paid. So there's the board, I'm the race director, we have all the aid captains, we have the volunteer coordinator, which coordinates, let's say 150 volunteers. We have the ham radio coordinator, who coordinates all the ham guys, which is at least 40 or 50 guys. We have, she's on the board, but she's our course manager, and she coordinates all the course marking and all the course sweeping. And we have 2 teams that sweep every section to make sure that everything is picked up. So that's a huge production.
Sure.
We have our trail maintenance team, which is those PCT guys, and the other guy I talked about who coordinates all of that. We have our merch girl who's in charge of getting any swag that we want to sell at the race, and she has people that helps her. And then Jason is in charge of the fire station, which orders all the food, the drinks, if we need pots and pans, all of that kind of stuff, and runs that whole production, which is a big thing within itself. And then we have our finish line team, because it's a long finish line and we are pretty manual, we're not.
Yeah.
So it's a huge group of people, and everybody just wants to be a part of the race.
Right.
Yeah. And I mainly just like connect between them. I'm just making sure everything's going on. Yeah.
So moving on from Cascade, I have one quick question on Cascade. You live in Seattle, and the drive to Easton is a couple hours?
About an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah. So
no
what's
traffic.
your time commitment look like? How far out ahead do you get into Easton, stay stationed in Easton prior and post race?
Yeah. So for really close to the race, I'm there most of the week. The guys get there on Sunday. The race is the following Friday. So we get a house that's very close to the race, a big house, starting Sunday, and we have it for a full week till the following Saturday. And then we get a second house from Wednesday to Saturday for half the team that shows up on Wednesday, because we have a lot of people that come up and stay most of the week. And so I'm in and out. I will definitely be there most days. Usually I come home for one night to do a lot of stuff on the computer, finalize certain things, print stuff out, see my family, see my husband and the dogs. But I'm there pretty much the whole week, and I'm the last person there after the race. But usually we have such a good team cleaning up at the end of the race that there's not a lot of follow-up the following day. And then it depends upon the year, but I take multiple trips up. Last year I didn't have to do as much. We'll see how much I can get out this year, because the whole course has to be seen.
Right.
It's a 100-mile loop. We need to have eyes on the course, especially as the snow melts, because there's been years where there's still snow on the course or on the roads to get to the aid stations. That's the biggest concern.
Yeah.
And what has happened to the roads to the aid stations. So not only do we need to have eyes on the course, we need to have eyes on the roads to the aid stations, because nobody else really drives those roads. They're not well-traveled roads, and they're sketchy. But so there's a lot of recon that needs to happen late June, early July. So life is very crazy. And then there's the whole, there's all the stuff year round. That's this and that. But as I get close to when submissions are due, because for Cascade, you have to do 8 hours of trail work, and you need to do a race qualifier, and I verify all those. And it's not just the runners, it's the wait list too. So it's like 600 people, and a lot of people wait until the deadline to send that. So I have hundreds of things to verify in June. Yeah. It's fun.
Before we wrap up Cascade, or I guess as I'm wrapping up Cascade, I know you're also involved with other races in Seattle. Tell me briefly about that event management company and how long you've been with them.
Yeah, so Cascade was a great door opener because I really enjoyed it. That then later on that year, some friends that I've known just in the running community that work for this race company called Run Super, they needed help at a race. And I was like, I'll come help. And they were growing at that time. And I really liked doing Cascade, and Cascade wasn't enough to keep me busy all year because it's just one event. That I asked the owner if she needed any help, Sabrina, and she was like, yeah. And so, because she was starting nursing school, so she needed to really hand off a lot of the race planning to somebody else. And so we've been working together for 3 years now.
Okay.
And last year we bought 3 already established races, large races, city races, where streets are closed, permits, police, all that kind of stuff. So it's been really fun because the race company, we have 12 events that we do. And they are vary from 5K, 10K, half marathon to half marathon, marathon to ultras. So we have the whole gamut. We have trail races, we have road races, we have off in the woods, we have on city streets. And so it's really fun because for one, you're serving a wide range of types of runners, which has been fun to see because it's so different
Yeah.
for
Oh, yeah.
some people. A 5K is a huge deal, and I love that. And just like my knowledge base has grown so much dealing with so many different types of permits, the different red tape, the different things that the different types of runners care about different things
Yeah.
in the race. So now it's like gangbusters all the time year round because as I know you understand super well, it's
Yeah.
just race directing. It's like putting on a huge wedding with a million details.
Yeah.
Like it's just
Too many
a million
nuances.
details.
Yeah. So before we call it a wrap, I have one last question for you. What advice would you give to a new female race director?
Oh, that's a great question. Honestly, find a female race director friend or mentor. I mean,
Touche?
seriously, because for me, it really helps to feel like you have somebody that you can talk to, that you can laugh with. And guys are great, but they're different. They're
Yeah.
just different. And that's okay. And that's great. But because I didn't have a woman female race director friend in my life at first. And once I started getting connected to other women, it made a huge difference. But other than that, it's like, just like with running, you're stronger than you think you are. I mean, everybody's different. So what gets to them is different, but just like rock on, sister, do it.
Amen.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me, Jess. I appreciate it. And with that, we'll call the second episode a wrap. Thanks for listening to today's episode. And if you're looking for more information on the TURD podcast, please visit our website at terraintrailrunners.com or give us a follow on the social media channels. Until next time, don't forget to say thanks to your favorite race director. We appreciate it, and it makes our jobs worth doing. Thank you.